Okay, sorry, I was reading the pop-up that came up. Hello everyone. I am doing this intro because I know a lot of you rewatched my lives, so I put this in the community tab, but if you didn't see, basically I thought we could have a live for today's upload in the form of though having like a topic that I thought we could go through. So I thought we'd talk about my thoughts on Heartstopper season 3 because somebody did request that in another video, which just made me feel so happy. Like when I saw the comment come through, I was like, yes, I will talk about Heartstopper. And I thought that was a good topic to do on a thing for a live where it was like a collaborative video, if that makes sense, because I feel like I was thinking about doing just a video on it, but then it didn't feel very like my channel-ish, which isn't the vibe, but you know what I mean, like it didn't feel very like in. And then I thought it would be a great way to have, like, it's a good thing to have a conversation around, if that makes sense, where you guys can tell me what your thoughts were if you've seen it, and there can be enough things for me to say to make a video for you to watch back. I am sorry it's portrait rather than landscape like usual. We are up at the van if you couldn't tell, so I didn't want it to be like this big thing where I needed a computer, so I'm sorry that it is portrait, but there's enough for me to talk about so you can watch it back, because I know some people like Jodie and stuff can't get on the lives and watch them back, but and there's stuff for me to talk through if nobody joins, because these haven't gone very well recently, but I still want to do them and I thought it would maybe be better. So we're going to talk about Heartstopper season 3. I didn't binge it all in one go. I actually watched it a lot slower than I was expecting, mainly because we were busy. Like we had, what did we have? I can't remember. And I normally watch it at lunch because Jack doesn't watch it, so I normally watch it when he's up in his office working, and I didn't watch it all in one go. Basically I watched it over a few days, which was nice. I enjoy that. I like having it there to watch because it's like one of my favorite shows, so I didn't completely binge watch it, and it made me have time to think about how I felt about it. I do want to rewatch it because I absolutely loved it, but I thought I'd go through my thoughts on it. I haven't really consumed much about it on like TikTok and stuff, so if it feels like I'm repeating stuff that's on TikTok, I haven't consumed any of that, so I don't know. Would you mind filling my water bottle up? I should have done it before I started. Thank you. What was I saying? This is the thing with doing them live, I will lose my train of thought more and have to go back on myself. Yeah, if it feels like I'm repeating stuff on TikTok, I don't know. If it's a common thought train and it seems obvious, I apologize. I might also be wrong. I'm not saying that these are facts, but this is just coming from somebody who's queer, who used to teach sex ed, who is very interested in the sex ed kind of sphere of the show. It's okay. I'm on live. People will know that there'll be noises in the background. There is a heater on next to me as well, if you can hear that. I do apologize. But that's where it's coming from me. Obviously, I don't know. Is that a bull ring? It's a septum ring. But I think, do Americans call the septum a bull ring more than what we do?
So, yeah.
Americans call it a bull ring,
Yeah,
rather than a septum. But yes, it is a septum piercing. Thank you. I will start going through what I thought, because I do have literally like a lot of notes to go through. I had a lot of thoughts. These aren't in any particular order. This was just me, as I was watching it, writing notes down about my thoughts about it. So, first thought I had about it. I liked the realisticness of Christmas, sex ed lessons, parents, and siblings. I thought the realisticness of British experiences of them were brilliant. I thought the Christmas thing was great. I feel like Christmas is such a, not over romanticized, but a romanticized kind of thing in media, and the Christmas, like the dysfunctional Christmas, I felt like I related to, and also just really enjoyed seeing that. The sex ed lessons, 100% correct. There is no queer representations in sex ed lessons in the UK, and just the awkwardness of it. Parents, I liked how the parents were flawed. The parents were flawed. I am going to come on to that in a bit though. And also the sibling relationship. I felt like that was a bit more of a nice sibling relationship rather than realistic, but there was still realistic parts in there. Let's see, I love your hair, thank you very much. British, just say water. I'm from the northeast of England, from Northumberland, so I do have like a Geordie twang. I don't know what people hear, especially when I'm talking like this, when I'm on here. I'd say would you agree I'm more Geordie when I'm off camera? Sometimes. Yeah. Does tunnel piercing hurt? I stretched this, so I didn't get it like pierced like this. It's stretched and it's all right. I stretched it when I was younger, so it was just kind of like re-stretching it. Anyway, right. Next point. I love how we saw more of Nick's desire. Oh no, that's a boyfriend. I'm gone. Okay, bye. I love how we saw more of Nick's desire for Charlie and his vulnerability, because I feel like we didn't really see that in the past seasons. The past season, it's been very much like looking at Charlie's desire for Nick and how Nick seemed like this unattainable boy that he wanted. I love how we saw that Nick had the desire for Charlie as well. I loved that. I also loved seeing his vulnerability, that scene with him. There is going to be spoilers, by the way, so if you haven't finished it, I do apologize. But I also like that scene with Nick and Tao was just beautiful. It was I absolutely loved it. But I loved how we saw other sides of the vulnerability there as well. Next point, I think they got a good balance of side characters that Sex Education didn't, because I feel like because these are the high school queer shows, I feel like because they're both Netflix, it's very easy to compare them. Like, they are very similar shows, but Sex Education is one of my favorite shows ever. Like, I absolutely adored that show. I thought it was so important, especially from like a previous sex educator. I absolutely loved it. So I feel like I do compare Heartstopper, and so I feel like Heartstopper is a more tame version of Sex Education. But in terms of side characters, I feel like Heartstopper has gotten a very good balance of the side characters compared to Sex Education. Sex Ed felt like, I feel like that was a big criticism in the last season, where it was like, we don't care about these new characters, whereas Heartstopper seems to have brought in these new characters more, but not like been like, we need the backstory, we need to know all of this. Like, it felt very balanced. It was so nice. Like, I loved seeing Elle's friend from the art college, but not spending too much time with them, because it felt like we got to see them, but we didn't need that backstory. And the way that Elle interacted with them, we kind of got their personalities anyway, so I liked them. And then who else was I also thinking about? Oh, like Imogen and Zahara. I do have more points to talk about them, but I have them. I think that's a good balance that we got of this compared to what we had with Sex Education. I really liked that balance, like that we had them, but we didn't spend too much time with them. Like, we got the time that we needed with Nick and Charlie and Tao and Elle. But yeah, anyway, next point. Love Tori's boyfriend. Love Tori's boyfriend. I think it's Michael. I loved him, and then I feel like I know where it's going with him. I haven't read the comics, so I don't have anxiety, Hunter. Please leave me be. I liked him anyway, and then I haven't read the comics, but I feel like he's going to be written as autistic, so I feel like that's why I liked him so much. I just loved it. I loved all the parts about him where he just came and sat down at the table and was like, where is your sister? What is happening? I love how he didn't have those. I love Tori's boyfriend. Anyway, next point. So I'm really glad that they talked about the current issues with trans topics and how it humanized the conversations. So obviously the whole storyline with Elle and the radio show, I found it very, I thought it was a really good way of showing it how how trans people are actually experiencing this whole politicism of trans rights at the minute, because I feel like the way that we see it in media and the conversation that we're having at the minute, it is very easy to just step back and just see it as a political issue, whereas I feel like the show showed how it is to be a person going through it. So absolutely loved it. And I feel like maybe it probably is in the comics, but The comics came out a few years ago, so I don't know, it might be like a new storyline that wasn't in the comics, but if it wasn't in the comics, I'm really glad that they put it in the comics, because I thought it was really important. And seeing how Elle's family and Tao responded to that as well, enjoyed it a lot. I'm glad there wasn't any artificial tension just for the plot. So I feel like a lot of shows will put like miscommunication tropes and things like that in just to get tension in the plot, and it felt like they didn't do that, and I love that because you can tell when it's not actually realistic and not actually needed. So an example I had with Darcy moving out of I always forget people's names. Oh, Tara. Darcy moving out of Tara's house. What's going on in this chat? Hang on, let me see if I can get some people out. But hello, thank you to everybody who's saying hello. I really appreciate it. I am talking about Heartstopper season 3, so I'm sorry if that's not what you're here for, but yeah. I don't have any moderators, so give me a second. This is so hard to do. I see why people oh god, have moderators. Right, okay, what was I saying? Yeah, Darcy moving out of Tara's, I felt like that was a very easy thing that they could have made just a load of tension in for no reason, and they didn't. Like, it was very much just like, here's a problem, they talked about it, and then it moved on, rather than staying on this one topic, which was good. I'm going to talk about like the pacing of the show anyway, but I felt like it was good for the pacing that they didn't just keep these like unnecessary plots in just for tension. I really enjoyed how they did it. I went back to front. I also do you reckon I'll be allowed to say Virginity without YouTube kicking me off live?
You said it now.
I know, but do you reckon I'm gonna be allowed to? Okay, I'm gonna say it, and maybe they'll just take monetization off me. V. Okay, I'll call it V instead of the full word. So I'm glad that they made a point of V meaning nothing. People are saying they think it's safe. I feel like I'm gonna have to say virginity, so I'll say it anyway. I'm glad they made a point of virginity meaning nothing at different points in the show. So I liked how there was literally somebody, when I think Nick was at, what was he at? No, a study session with the boys or something. One of them literally went, virginity doesn't mean anything, but it is still a big deal. I loved that. I loved how they showed that it can be a big deal without virginity being a big deal. I liked how they showed your first time doesn't have to be this planned thing. It can be a spur of the moment thing, because I feel like when you're talking about V and things like that in media, it can be very like, oh, well, it's my first time and I need to get it right. And I loved how in both couples, so with Elle and Tao and with Nick and Charlie, it was just a spur of the moment thing, and they talked about it beforehand, but it was allowed to just be this passionate moment without it being like this big deal. I love how they showed that. Obviously you can plan it and have this big deal, but I love how they showed that it can just be spur of the moment. I love them talking about it before it happened. Loved that. I think it showed how important it is to communicate, and that's lost on teenagers a lot of the time. I do feel like Heartstopper is realistic, but it is this idealized version of what you want to happen in life. Obviously not everything, because there's a lot of dark points to talk about in there as well, but I feel like they are trying to be a show that shows you the way and to do a lot of things, and I loved how they showed the way of being like, communicate about it before you do it, like Nick and Charlie did. I just loved how they talked about it before it actually came to it. Another thing, I'm so pleased they showed it without showing it, because that would feel weird, seeing these characters who we've seen since they were meant to be like 14 actually doing it, like sex education. I was okay for that. I was a little bit worried because I'd seen PR and stuff of them doing it before, like talking about how they had sex scenes and how they had like an intimacy coordinator and stuff, and I was like, oh god, I really don't want to watch a sex scene with these characters. But I'm glad how they showed it without showing it, because for me that felt weird because they weren't meant to be young, so I was very happy with that. I love the talk about the types of sex and how you don't have to think of like hetero. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say these words. You don't have to have... Just know that this is me being careful for YouTube, not for just life in general, because I am the biggest... I will use all the words and love to talk about this, but I am just so scared that YouTube's gonna kick me off. So I liked how they were portraying that hetero isn't the norm, and you don't have to just call hetero sex. Like, I love how Nick and Charlie had the conversation being like, can that be classed as sex? And them to be like, yes, it can be, because that's my opinion. I think it should be that all types of sex is just called sex. I think that's a very healthy attitude to have around it, and it's a very inclusive attitude to have around it in terms of queerness and gender queerness and stuff like that. So I loved how they had that conversation as well, because of how queer that cast and those characters are. I felt like it was a very important point to make in the show, so I'm very glad that they made that point. Okay, next points. Oh, I loved the... Oh, is the microwave doing the thing again?
Yeah, all I did was touch it though.
Close it. Oh, we're at the van. If you aren't subscribed, me and my boyfriend own a... Oh, well done. We own a static caravan that we use as a holiday let, and we're up doing a clean at the minute, and that's what Jack is doing behind camera. And we have an integrated microwave, and sometimes if you close the door it'll just keep the microwave on even if you haven't pressed start, but Jack seems to have fixed it by banging on it.
You'll unlock TV.
Yeah. Okay, next point. I love the acknowledgement of it being a struggle on partners when someone's going through it. So I loved how I was expecting, because I think I knew the ED thing was coming with Charlie. I get Nick and Charlie's names mixed up all the time, so if I get it wrong, you know who I mean, but I knew the ED thing was coming. Smell it. Oh. And I thought it was going to be all on that, but I love how we saw both of them. Someone's just said, Sarah, I love you in your lesbian ways. Hang on, I'm not a lesbian, but thank you. I am queer, but not a lesbian. I liked how it showed, I've gotten the names wrong. Nick, I like how it showed Nick's perspective on going through Charlie's struggles. I thought that was really, really, like, important to show that. I am pansexual rather than bi. I identify as pansexual. I thought it was important, and how it was hard on both of them. Like, it didn't feel like because Nick was struggling that diminished Charlie's struggling. I thought they did it in a really, really lovely way, and that they both were struggling with the situation, and both of them were very valid in that. I liked how they showed that. What's the next point? Right, this is one of my very few negative points of this season, and it's not even that big of a negative, but it is a negative. So it felt like the relationship between Imogen and Zahara was slightly rushed / underdeveloped. I liked having them in the show. I do feel like with Zahara, it feels very, not random. Random's the wrong way to put it, but I don't think they've integrated Zahara into the cast very well. Obviously, I've seen that they're in doing promos and stuff like that. I've just got the question, do you like pans? This is my life. No, I don't like pans. I like everyone. This is my sexuality. It is pink. It is a very pretty pan.
Don't get too excited.
No, pansexuality is when you do not care about gender. Gender doesn't come into your thoughts, really. I don't care about gender. I'm attracted to anyone. But I do feel like Zahara has been just like slowly integrated to the cast, I don't want to say cast, into the show without really giving enough backstory, because I just feel like she's just there. Like, we had the storyline of Zahara helping with prom, and then she was just there, and I was like, oh, okay. It doesn't feel like we've been given enough time to understand Zahara. And then the whole Imogen and Zahara storyline felt very just, it just happened without much backstory. I just felt like it was a bit rushed / underdeveloped, but I did love the acknowledgement that sometimes it's okay to decide to be friends. Like, I loved that, because obviously everybody apart from Isaac, which obviously is Ace, is in a relationship. It felt like it was very like, relationships are everything. So I loved that storyline of Imogen and Zahara just deciding that they wanted to be friends, and that was completely okay. I loved it. Right, let's go on with it. What do you think of everything going on with Diddy? I don't really feel like there's an opinion to be had about that. That's a very odd comment. There's a very odd comment in here about a 16-year-old boy.
I mean, I suppose it's a good thing.
No, I haven't read it out. I'm not reading out on live.
No, I suppose it's a good thing Diddy wasn't in Heartstopper.
Yes, it was a good thing Diddy wasn't in Heartstopper. Bisexual then, haha. Nope, not bisexual. I don't really get the meaning of queer. I think queer is just an umbrella term of anybody who identifies as not heterosexual.
Regardless of gender is the term, isn't it?
What, queer?
No, like, Anne.
Oh, well, I'm talking about queer.
Oh, sorry.
Somebody said they don't understand the meaning of queer. I think queer is just a label that the LGBTQ plus community has dubbed, so we don't have to say LGBTQ plus all the time. It's just an easy way of saying that we are a part of that community. Some people are being horrific. I've had 2 people in this live saying I don't seem well balanced and I seem agitated. Leave me alone. That's horrible. Why would you say that to somebody?
That'll make me a mod, like, kicking out.
That's the thing, I don't have mods. I was saying that because there was someone like spamming the chat. Queer can also mean weird. It can, but I wouldn't say people use that as a term anymore.
That was the outdated way of using it, and the queer communities reclaimed the word.
Yeah, I suppose that's true, but I don't know the like history of the word. Someone said, don't let the haters bother you. You seem very well balanced to me. Thank you. I am autistic, so there's something going on, but I don't have anxiety and I'm absolutely fine. I'm not 16. I only try to be banned to this stream. What does that mean?
Trying to get banned.
They're trying to get banned. Okay, I'll just move on, shall I? People who are being nice, I appreciate you. Anyway, right, what was this? I think I've said what I wanted to say about Zahara and Imogen. I loved the mom. So I actually wrote this point before the last episode. So I said I love the mom being difficult and also seeing her parents be the reason why, probably. And then the last episode happened and it talked about her mother. So I'd kind of already guessed where that was going, and I loved that. There's 2 points to this. Like, I loved seeing what's the word I'm looking for? Challenging parent-child representation. Obviously we have that with Imogen, but Imogen is to the point where it's completely toxic. But I loved having the difficult relationship between parent and child, and the mom being a little bit difficult. I loved seeing that represented on screen. I loved seeing how Charlie managed that, but then I also loved when we had the Christmas episode, seeing her mom come into it and seeing why that she was like that. And the end episode where she was talking about that was just the cherry on the cake, when she was saying she was trying so hard to not be that she thinks she's become it anyway. I love that. I love seeing the adult relationships. I don't think I've wrote this down, but I love seeing the teachers' relationship as well. I like how there are some adult arcs in there, but again, like I said with the side characters early on, not like taking over the show. Really enjoyed it. Gay means happy too. That is true. I'm a queer then. I wouldn't say a queer, say you're queer. I think I'm a queer. I suppose if it's been reclaimed, you could say I'm a queer, couldn't you?
Yeah, it just doesn't sound great.
But I think in terms of just grammar, you would say I'm queer too.
Yeah.
That was the one I can. Tara is my favourite. She seems like a sweetheart. Yeah, I really like Tara. I do. I think I have. Do I have a? Yeah, I have a point about Tara coming up, so I'll talk about Tara in a little bit. But I do love Tara as well. But this is Jack, by the way. If you are new to the stream, he is doing cleaning whilst I'm doing this. I think I'll leave it there with the parent thing. I really, really liked the parental representation. I liked seeing that relationship on screen and then them communicating at the end. Because like I say with Heartstopper, feeling like it is this how things should be dealt with. I really loved having the communication between Charlie and his mom, and her explaining why she thinks she is like this, and her apologising, and then Charlie apologising. I loved it. Right, next point. Tao finding a creative outlet and something that he loves within this, beautiful. Like, it was such a lovely little, I wouldn't even call it like a plot because it wasn't like huge, but a little side quest. Watching him find something that he loved as much as Elle loves art was beautiful. Like, just seeing it all go through and him realizing how much he loves videography and then using that passion to then create things for his friends was just absolutely beautiful. And I wish we could all have that in my life. Tara's the black lesbian. Yeah, she is a good representation of black lesbians everywhere. Oprah follows her on Instagram. Yeah, I absolutely love her. I don't think I've wrote this down, but I think the where they were going, and it might be more developed in the next season. I loved I don't want to call it that in case it's not going, but I think it's going down the route of talking about like the black excellence kind of thing, and I think that's a really good thing to show in the show, because I don't think race has really been talked about much in the show, so I feel like maybe if that's where that's going, that'll be a really good thing to talk about as well. Oh, someone said you're handsome, Jack. He says thank you. And hello everyone who's just joined. We are talking about Heartstopper season 3. There is spoilers, hang on. Yeah, but I just loved that for Tao this season. I loved it. I don't think I've wrote about it as well, but I loved Elle and Tao this season, and I also loved the the intense relationship leaving out friends storyline, because me and Jack fell into that, because I was 14 and he was 15 when we got together, and we were in that, like, it got very intense very quickly and then just stopped talking to people. And I wish it had gone down the way like what Heartstopper has shown, where it's like talked about, where Isaac is like, you've left me out, and it's brought up, because I think for our instance, no one really, I think when you're younger you don't realize how other people are feeling as much as you should, and then no one said that to us. They were just a bit mean about it. So I just loved how it was show and communicate again. I feel like that's a common thread in Heartstopper. It's just like communicate. So I loved it. Anyway, okay, next one. Imogen unpacking male attention and compulsory heteronormativeness was excellent. I loved it. I didn't know where I wanted it to go with Imogen, because it feels like she was involved way more in season 2 than she was in season 3. And when season 2 was happening and the thing with Ben and things like that, I didn't really know where I felt like the character was. I didn't know if I thought she was straight, or whether like an ally, or whether I thought that she was queer, or whether it was the type of thing where she goes into a queer friendship group and then realizes she's queer. Like, I didn't know where I wanted it to go, and I didn't really have any like, no, she's this, going into this season. So seeing her conversation with Nick talking about how she actually feels like she's never really fancied a boy, I thought was an excellent point to make. And compulsory heterosexuality is such a it is a problem. So I loved how they unpacked that, and I love how she like unpacked almost being a pick-me. Like, I loved how they talked about that, and how she was just like, I think I wanted male attention. I thought it was brilliant. I know, like I've said, I feel like Heartstopper is this ideal situation, but I feel like people don't unpack that until they're like in their 20s. So having this 16-year-old be like, yeah, I think I was just being a pick-me, was just bloody brilliant. I loved her. I like Imogen. How's it going? Yeah? I feel like I'm talking really fast. I need to slow down. Someone said, I'm growing my head and my shoulders. I'm 13. How should I style? I don't know. Not the person to ask with hair. Okay, right. I love Tara figuring out that she didn't have to go to Oxford. I feel like there is this thing where it's like, if you can, you should. And I loved seeing her unpack that and knowing that she didn't have to go there. Like, when she was there and she was like, I kind of hate it, and was just like, I don't like it. Perfect. That is how we should be. And I think that was a really good role model situation again of like the idealism of showing younger people just because you can doesn't mean you have to do what makes you happy. So I love that she rejected Oxford. Like, I really enjoyed it. Next, I'm so glad Isaac had more involvement and confidence this season. It felt like Imogen stepped back and Isaac stepped up, which I enjoyed. I've always thought it was strange in season 1 and 2 to have Isaac in the show and to be such like a integral person to the show, because he's been there since the beginning and he was set up to be this best friend of Tao and... Sorry, I am not very well. I think I've got a sinus infection. It's okay. To Tao and Charlie, and then to not have him talk a lot in the show. And I know that's kind of part of his character, that he's a bookworm and stuff like that, but I always found it a bit weird that they weren't putting his opinion in it as much as other characters. So I really enjoyed having Isaac be involved in it more and having the confidence as well. It really felt like once Isaac figured himself out, he found himself and started being more confident, and I loved that. Like, I loved the representation of that in showing that coming out can give you that confidence. But I also just really liked having him involved in the show more, and he also liked checking people a lot more. Like, I loved how he was the one who was like checking on Charlie more, but also being the one to kind of like check his friends who were in relationship, like, and then also to, I always forget his name, the one who was maybe a romantic partner for Isaac in season 2, him saying like, no, you're my only single friend, please don't. Like, I just really enjoyed his character development and seeing him more this season. I hope it's going to carry on, because I really like Isaac. So penultimate point, like I say, these weren't in any order, so I'm really glad they made the time frame longer for this season. And I think it was because obviously we have a lot more serious topics in season 3. I actually felt like the time frame worked to its, what's the word I'm looking for, to its credit, because it kept the show overall feeling like a very hopeful show. Like, I feel like that's what I've went to Heartstopper for in the past, is to feel like hopeful and happy and just seeing queer joy. Like, that was the main reason I was watching in season 1 and 2. So I felt like I wasn't against them bringing in big topics and adult topics, because I know a lot of people feel like it feels like a different show, but I wasn't against them bringing in these adult, more serious topics. It was just more of like, oh, it's not going to be like a hopeful, happy vibe to the show. But because they made the time frame way longer, because I think season 1 and 2 were maybe like over the span of like 3 or 6 months, whereas this, or like a year, whereas season 3 it kind of covered nearly a year, I think. Yeah, a year, because at the end Charlie was doing his duties, I don't know, but it felt longer. Doing that allowed us to end the season on that hopeful and happy vibe, and I'm really glad that they did that, because I think if they'd ended it and cut the time frame down and they'd ended it where like Charlie had just came out of being an inpatient, it would have felt very down at the end, because you would have been like worried about him still. And I think just having that time frame kept it feeling like the same show. Like, I think that was definitely the right, I'm assuming it goes off the comic book, so it's probably Alice Oseman who needs the credit of this. I'm not sure if they changed the time frame at all from the comic to the show, but I just felt the time frame change from 1 and 2 to 3 was definitely the right thing to do, and it made the show cover serious topics that needed to be there, and 1000% were the right thing to talk about, but then still left us feeling like there was queer joy in there and happiness and hopefulness, and I just really loved where they ended it. I'm sad they ended it where they ended it, because I want more, but still. What was the next point? Oh yeah, and I loved seeing that you saw the recovery and like the journey of the characters. It didn't just, I don't know, take you out at the end of the season of just being like, oh yeah, they're not okay yet. Like, I liked it ending on their way back to being okay. I loved seeing that journey rather than being pulled out maybe like halfway through the journey. Okay, this is my last point actually, so if anybody has any questions or want me to talk about any particular things, put them in the chat because I'll talk about that after. But I loved how Tara tried to vouch for other people like throughout the show. Like she was the person who was trying to make people be better, and I loved that there was that character there, because I felt at some points Elle was being a little bit pushy, but they always had in that Tara was being like, Elle, stop it. Like that's, even though, so the scene that I'm thinking about is when Elle's in the car and talking to Nick about university and being like, well, just go where you want to go, and she's being quite pushy. I liked that Tara was like, Elle, no, and Elle was like, no, I want to say this. I liked how Tara tried to like vouch for Nick and stop Elle being so pushy, and she did that. I can't think of other instances, but she did that throughout the show, and I really like her character. But relating back to, I feel like they're bringing into like the trope of like black excellence and stuff like that. I hope she doesn't take that to, she has to be like the caretaker of the group. But I really like how there is somebody there keeping their friends in check. Like she knows her friends and what is good for her friends, and keeps the other friends in check for what they need, if that makes sense. Like I just really love Tara. I think she's an excellent character. That was my last one. Someone said something, you might have touched on this, but I've never seen an eating disorder storyline treated with so much sensitivity on TV before. It showed how hard having a mental illness is on loved ones very well. Yeah, and I feel like another thing that was really good about it was it didn't show anything, because I feel like when media tries to cover eating disorders specifically, they will be very explicit about what the people are doing, and that can be so triggering for people. Like I've had an eating disorder and I don't like watching eating disorder coverage on shows, because I just feel like if someone's struggling with bulimia, they'll show someone vomiting. Like it's not enjoyable for anyone. And this felt like, and again as well with like the self-harming, like they talked about it and showed how impactful it was on Nick and Charlie and Charlie's family without showing it. I know they showed Charlie's scars, but I just felt like it was a really nice way of representing it in the way of how impactful it is to the person going through it, how impactful it is for the family, how impactful it is for the partner, without being so explicit. Like I love that. And I know it probably comes down to the age range for the show and what they're trying to target, but at the same time I feel like that show could be an 18 and I'd still really enjoy the way that they covered the eating disorder topic. And I also loved showing the inpatient part of it. And I've said, just in case people are joining, I've said throughout this, I feel like Heartstopper is kind of an idealized life in showing like this is how things should be handled. But I love how aware Nick and Charlie were, and that Charlie went to inpatient, because inpatient just isn't covered very well in general. I feel like it's either you're in an inpatient facility where it is really bad for you and it's deemed like a mental health facility where it's like, what's the word I'm looking for, where you don't have a choice to go. It's not called that anymore, but that is the word. I can't remember. You know when like the Mental Health Act, you're detained like under the Mental Health Act. I feel like that's the only thing that's shown in media a lot, whereas this was a really nice representation of how helpful inpatient facilities can be. And I like how they acknowledged though that there was bad inpatient facilities as well, like saying like, I know everybody doesn't have this experience, but it was really good for me. I know it's fictional, but still, I thought they handled it really well. And I know you said about the families and loved ones as well. I loved Tori's reaction to it and seeing how worried she was, and I like how she like messaged Nick. And I do agree, I feel like it was a very good way of covering eating disorders and OCD as well. Like I felt like that was very good to show, because I feel like people who don't have the best understanding of mental disorders and eating disorders you could very well have just been like, no, that's just an eating disorder. But I feel like for people who are more clued up, so like I went to uni for psychology, so I saw it. I was like, it's not just an ED, you can see it's OCD as well. I'm really glad how they showed that as well, to be like, it can be more than one thing, and they can like affect other things. So I loved how both of them were there, and how the therapist helped Charlie with that. I love your accent, thank you very much. Can you get a shout out? Thank you very much, Stuart. Who's Charlie? We are talking about Heartstopper. So Charlie is in Heartstopper. Hello, Matthew. Charlie, I now passed Redwood. I'm not entirely sure what you mean. But yeah, that wasn't like an exhaustive list of all of my thoughts. I know I've been talking for 40 minutes, but it's not an exhaustive list of all of my thoughts. I have other things that I really, really enjoyed that I haven't talked about, but they were my main things. So if anybody has any other points that they want me to talk about whilst I'm on here, please put it in the chat, or any just questions just in general, just while I'm here now if you want. But I really enjoyed this season, and it does feel different, but it doesn't feel like a different show. Like, it just feels like a grown-up version of the show. And I've seen them in interviews talking about how their audience is growing up, and so are they, and that's why it's changing. And obviously the comics change as well, but I just think like they're completely right. Like, it should be changing as they grow. One thing as well though that I thought that was funny was when, I don't think Nick looks any different, but when Charlie first came on this, like when Joe Locke came on the screen, I was like, you do not look 16 anymore, young man. Like, you don't look 16 anymore. It wasn't really bad, like it wasn't like noticeable, but when he came on screen, I was like, oh, you've aged between season 2 and 3. But of course they're gonna, like, they're not that much older.
Well, he's playing a 16-year-old in Agatha as well.
Agatha as well. He doesn't look 16. But I mean, how often do film and TV cast 16-year-olds when they're playing 16-year-olds? Like, it never happens.
Was it Tom Holland like 22, wasn't it, when he was playing a 15-year-old Spider-Man?
I think he was older than 22. Jack was saying Tom Holland was like 22 when he was playing a 16-year-old in Spider-Man. But yeah, Joe Locke, I don't think Nick has changed at all. Like, he looks exactly the same, but Joe Locke definitely looks like he's aged. I don't think the rest of Tao, you can tell a little bit. Elle looks exactly the same. She is one of the prettiest people I've ever seen in my life as well. Like, I think her name's Yasmin, I can't remember her name, but she is so freaking pretty. Like, whenever she was on screen, I was just like, you're beautiful. Like, she's so freaking pretty. But I think everybody else kind of looks the same age. It was funny though, because I felt going into it, I was a bit like with Imogen, because I don't know if people keep up with like the theatre scene, but Imogen is currently playing Sally Bowles at the Kit Kat Club, and it's just like a completely different role. And I was like, okay, now I see her as like Sally Bowles, and then she's going to be playing a 16-year-old again. It's so strange seeing like how old they are. And we literally I finished Heartstopper, and then we've just started Agatha. What's the show called? I can't remember. You know Agatha, the show that's on Disney? Is it Agatha All Along? It's had like 5 different titles, that show. So it's so strange seeing Joe Locke in a different show. And I was like, I've had him in my head as like this 15-year-old boy who's struggling with an eating disorder. And then it's like, oh, he's a gothy witch. It's just like, whoa, completely different. But yeah, overall, I really, really enjoyed the season. I am so sad it's over. I wish there was more. I always have the same. My like favorite shows ever are like Sex Education. Well, not ever, because Merlin would be in there. But my current like favorite shows that are still going are Sex Education, Heartstopper, Bridgerton, and House of the Dragon. And none of them, like all of them, have just been on. So it's gonna be like 2 years till any of my favorite shows. So I'm a little bit sad about it, but never mind. I just hope it's not actually 2 years before everything comes back around. I hope there's a season 4. I feel like there has to be. Like, surely. Because I saw people on TikTok, like, making fake announcements of people being like, it hasn't been confirmed. And I was like, surely there's going to be season 4. It has to be. I don't know, because I think Alice Oseman's just released the last comic, and I don't know how many comics there are. I think it's like 6, isn't it? I'm not entirely sure. If you know that, definitely correct me. But if they cancel it, oh, there'll be hell on. There's hell from Chaos being... We didn't watch Chaos, but there's hell from Chaos being cancelled. They can't cancel Heartstopper. Surely not. That feels like their only queer show at the minute. They can't cancel their only queer show. They've cancelled all the rest of them that's got every other queer characters in. Can you think of any Netflix show at the minute that has queer characters in? Not queer baiting, but queer.
No.
Because Sex Education's finished.
Yeah.
Bridgerton has some, but I mean, not the same. They can't cancel it. There'll be riots. I'll cancel my subscription if they cancel it. No, I think that's a really good point. Haley said it depends how long they wait to make the next season, as the actors will get too old otherwise. I completely agree, which is why they shouldn't take 2 years to bring out 1 season. I feel like it's the same with Bridgerton.
But even though there's bigger problems with Stranger Things has done that.
Yeah,
They're all like 6-year-olds now.
Yeah, Jack, I don't know how well you can hear about Jack, but Jack's saying that that's what's happening with Stranger Things. Like, just to clarify, we will not be watching Stranger Things when it comes out, but just to make the point of, they're all far too old to be playing the roles that they're playing. And like, it's the time frame, and it's the same with Heartstopper. You can't just skip. Whereas some shows, like I feel like Bridgerton, actually, you could get away with being like, it's been 3 years since the last one. But Heartstopper and Stranger Things, you can't just skip some time periods because they've all grown up. They need to get quicker. I don't understand this whole thing of taking 2 years for a season for like 8 episodes. I don't get it. I know it's whole like COVID and writer's strike, but that's over. I don't understand why it's taking so long for things to get done. But I think it's a very good point, Haley. Sorry. I think unless anybody has any more questions or comments, I'll end it soon. I'll give it a few more minutes to see if anybody has anything to say, and then I will get finished. I've done quite well. I am a little bit ill. I think I've got a sinus infection, so I've talked for 50 minutes with only a few like moments. But if you have any more questions on Heartstopper, on anything else, on Sex Education, because that show was my soul show, more than happy to answer. I feel like I'm due a rewatch of Sex Education soon. I should have done that. I should have done something like this when it was still on. When Sex Education was still on, yeah. Loved that show. I had so much to say about that show. Heartstopper's filled the space in my heart for it. Even though it's not the same, but it's still the same. It's got queer joy in there. We need more of it. Instead of just watching people struggle. We need more shows with queer joy in. Slim pickings at the minute. If anybody has any good recommendations for them, please let me know. But I think there's a few people more joined. If you have any questions or thoughts around Heartstopper season 3, please put them in the chat and I'll chat back to you. I'm sorry if you can hear that if you've just joined. I am currently at our static caravan and we are doing a changeover. I know it's alright, I'm just explaining it to them. And Jack is putting some cutlery and stuff away in the background, so I'm sorry for those noises. If you have any static caravan questions as well, more than happy to answer that. I'm going to be freezing when I move because I'm sat in front of the heater. Where's the remote for the heater? Oh, it's over there. Never mind. I definitely think it's my sinuses rather than anything else. Yeah. Okay, I'm not getting anything else, so I think I'm gonna leave it there. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're watching this after the fact, I'm sorry if it was a bit start-stoppy. Recording live is very, very different to recording and editing and then putting it up. So I hope if you come in here like after it's been on live, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've been here on live, thank you so much. I appreciate it, even if you haven't said anything. But I do appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody who said anything. Thank you, Hayley, for talking to me about Heartstopper. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed season 3. If you are watching this after the fact, please comment like any thoughts that you've had about it. I'll comment back. I could talk about this show for ages, but thank you to everybody who's watched, and I shall hopefully see you in another one. I'm gonna, if anybody wants me to go live more often, comment and let me know. But I shall see you in another